everyone, welcome back. So every year, Foco selects 10 winners from the Photography Fellowship Program in an effort to support and serve as an exhibition for artists of color. In the upcoming exhibition, In Between Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, people will have the opportunity to see these creatives build on the ideas that push cultural narratives to the center while interrogating race, geography, and gender. Joining us to tell us more, please welcome Curator Elia Alba and 2021 Photography Fellowship winners, Richard Acevedo and Argenis Apolinario. Hello and welcome. Bueno, it's been a lot in the making, right? Especially since last year. Congratulations, Elia, on becoming this year's curator for this amazing and thank God it's actually being curated in a physical space, right? It's not the same having it digitally curated.
Absolutely, absolutely. It does make a difference for it to be live.
Yeah. So let's talk about your curation storytelling style, and I guess what is it that goes into curating, let's say, an event like this that it has different styles of stories that are related to people of color?
So for this particular exhibition, you know, the artists were not selected by me. So that's like the first thing. You know, normally you're, as a curator, you pick your artists and you build around that. But what I did notice was a very connective line amongst the artists and their work. And something that when I was putting together the show, I felt like what I was talking about in the essays, an essay in the journal is kind of what I wanted to put into the show, is this idea, some with the ideas of storytelling, but also thinking about those in-between messages that exist within the photographs that mostly all these photographers were addressing. And so I wanted to kind of put that into the exhibition. That's why some of the works that are going to be in the show are not necessarily in the journal, but I think that the work was really reflective of my message of liminal spaces and this idea of the in-between in photography. You know, I think you can see it a lot in Argenis's work and also in Richard's work. Richard with his like stacks of, or actually like looking at bodegas in particular, which is something that's synonymous with being in the Bronx. And I think to some degree in Brooklyn, you know, at some point. But this idea that bodegas are just not stores, it's what they mean. They're convening places for people. And, you know, with gentrification kind of taking an order. So there is like that in-between story that's really at the heart of, for me, of his photographs. And then with Argenis, it was really looking, you know, it's not just his mother making empanadas or making wait, that's what Dominican. Pasteles. Sorry about that. Making pasteles. It's, you know.
She makes empanadas also, but.
Yeah, but exactly. But you know what I'm saying. It's this idea of the home, you know, what those hands really represent. It's not just a documentation of what his mother is doing, is what his mother represents. And it's in particular in times of now, and this idea, I was thinking too about bell hooks and this idea of home place and how we as people of color find our resistance and find our strength through our home that helps us go out into the world. So those are just like two narratives that I was finding within these works.
That's an interesting thread, right? And so I want to talk about your images, Argenis, because I know you, and I know that you really choose different topics, right? And or different angles. And so why did you choose to submit these stories to this particular event?
Well, I mean, I chose these images. They're sort of, I mean, they're very personal to me because they're images of my mother's hands and my aunt's hands. And especially, I mean, they were taken just before the pandemic, around the holiday season of 2019. And in the past year, I sort of spent a lot of time reflecting on my own craft and thinking about, originally, before I became a photographer, I was originally more of a painter and a drawer, and thinking about sort of the process of using hands to create, and realizing that some of that journey really started from my family and from my mother. She worked a lot with her hands, and so I saw myself in that.
That's beautiful. And also there's this documentation of ritual, right? Because that's a Caribbean ritual to make pasteles over the holidays. And the way you captured it, it's about the process. And then of course you find the vibrancy in the ingredients, in the way it's been captured. And so you can tell that it was personal. I'll just put it to you that way. And so, yeah, it's lovely. And Richard, so the way you capture the bodegas, although you're capturing our times, and that is part of our urban culture, they seem futuristic, which I found fascinating.
That was probably very intentional, but that's probably because most of my work usually entails a little bit of manipulation in terms of like adding some form of surrealism. But I chose these photos because they were very attuned to the moment that we were in specifically. And I found myself always going to my bodega. So I was like, well, I mean, I keep seeing my friends from the block here because I can't see them at any other point. And I found it being a meeting point. So I just felt like documenting it. And then I just created this very isolated aura around it. So it creates, and the neon lights very much well pop in that. So it could seem very out of the moment, but it is very much in this moment.
And so, which is in between, right? In between yesterday, today, and tomorrow, the name of the actual exhibition. And so, Elia, you mentioned a journal. Were you referring to Nueva Luz magazine, La Nueva Luz magazine? When you mentioned journal, you said it's not necessarily curated according to the journal. I just want to.
Sorry, yeah. So some artists, not all, like Richard will have his bodega, but not all the artists included the same images that are going to be reflective in the journal, but nonetheless kind of reflect the ideas that I was thinking about in the essay.
Okay. All right. And so what is that common thread, and what kind of experience should one be prepared to walk into?
To be open, to understand that the photographs are not immediately what they seem. We can immediately say these are bodegas and have these, just say, be very straightforward about them, look at them as documentation. In the essay, I refer to the Beckers. They were two German photographers that set out to kind of document these architectural structures that were dying, but they were very clinical in the way that they were documented, unlike Richard, where there's like a very emotive quality to them. And so that's what you're going to get a lot of that in the work.
And so before we go,
many of the works. So it's about emotion. It's about those in-between spaces that are not, at first glance. So we have to look a little deeper and understand what the artist is trying to say within the work.
And so, but before we go, because we're running out of time, in just from my perspective, I've always considered the photographers as well as the photojournalists to be our historians, and I just want to acknowledge you at Argenis for bringing a personal moment and using that touch, because I know that it reflects what you may have been going throughout 2020.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, with my documentary work, I sort of try to make it a very personal experience and not just sort of documenting the fact, but also the emotion. Yeah, and those moments for me were sort of very reflective, because those were moments, that was probably one of the last few times I saw my mother before the pandemic happened, up until, up until recently. So, and, it's to me, it's all about sort of craft and ritual and process.
Beautiful. And then Richard, you shared with us that you happened to find yourself going to the bodegas, and so you wanted to honor the bodegas. And the
Absolutely.
truth is that the bodega is part of our New York culture.
Absolutely, and our communities every day. Everyone in my neighborhood goes there, and you end up meeting everyone from it.
And in some form, you're honoring the essential workers.
Because they were open the entire time.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that shouldn't go unnoticed. You know what I mean? Like they went and they made sure they left themselves accessible so that people can get whatever, you know, needs that needed to be fulfilled. So before we go, I know we're completely out of time, but I want you to just share, Elia, all the other photographers that are being exhibited throughout the In Between exhibition.
So Richard Acevedo, who's here with us, Argenis, I was tempted to say Argenis again, Apolinario, Roy Bezan, David Batista, Kevin Quilas Bonilla, Amaris Carreras, Dina Hira, Sydney King, Spandita Malik, and Bashira Webb.
Beautiful. Thank you all for taking the time to be with us. I know you're over there preparing for the actual exhibition. And you guys, I want to just share that in between yesterday, today, and tomorrow, the opening reception for this exhibition will be on Tuesday, June 1st, and will be on display until June 30th at Woolworks, New York, which is at 15 Canal Place in the Bronx, with viewing available Tuesday through Thursday by appointment only. And you can visit Foco.org. All right, we have to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll find out about one Bronxite who's bringing vegan soul and Puerto Rican dishes to the community. Don't go anywhere.